Well, Democrats are in dire straits. The DNC is cash-strapped, and many in the party want Chuck Schumer out as leader, and a civil war is playing out between the far left and center factions. Plenty of criticism like this, but so far, no real answers.
In the Democratic Party, I want to have a very tough conversation, and I want it to be a competition of ideas about what our party is going to look like. I'm one of those people that's saying as our party has failed, they've made terrible mistakes, and I want us to emerge in this moment, not focusing on party, but refocusing on people. The Democratic Party has failed in my generation.
Andrew Cuomo lost the New York City mayoral race, but he posted an open letter to the party. It may signal larger ambitions for him, more criticism from within the party. He writes, quote, Democrats must redefine themselves with conviction and action. Americans will not elect a socialist, anti-police, divisive party. It is still the economy, stupid. But how do you improve it? Not with rhetoric, but with results. Start by laying out a concrete agenda. Former Clinton advisor and veteran Democratic strategist James Carville's new opinion piece argues that Democrats need to go out with woke, in with rage, specifically economic rage. He adds, the era of performative woke politics from the left has left a lasting stain on our brand, particularly with rural voters and male voters. More from Carville here.
What I'm urging the Democratic Party to do is move toward the cultural center and move toward the economic aggressiveness. I call it, maybe you want to call it the economic left. Not crazy about these kind of terms, but we got to do something. We need to quit fighting the culture wars and start fighting the economic wars and start siding on the side of families, start siding on the side of people that are trying to make it, and stop siding with people that already have it made.
All right, Leslie Marshall now, Fox News contributor, and Alex Swoyer, attorney and Washington Times legal affairs reporter. So, Leslie, let's start with you. You heard Cory Booker. I'm one of those people who's saying our party has failed. They made terrible mistakes. Andrew Cuomo says the push toward socialism offers aspiration, not realism. I'm sure, Alex, that Republicans are happy to allow this to continue. But, Leslie, do the Democrats need to do some soul searching?
Well, certainly after we lost in the general, we needed to do soul searching. And I think we continue, but I think we've done some very successful soul searching. I would not say that we failed as a party, and I certainly wouldn't say that we are in dire straits. When you look at not just the special election results in places like, Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia, the list goes on, but when you look at what the messaging was in those various states, if you break it down, whether it's New York City, the state of New Jersey, the state of Virginia, you look at people who said affordability. What they did was they pounded the pavement, they talked to the voters, and they said, what concerns you most? And it was affordability, economic issues. James Carville would know. He coined it's the economy, stupid. So I don't think it's wrong. I think Republicans should do it, too. I think whether you're winning or you're losing, whether you're succeeding or you're failing, you always want to do better, and you want to sit down and say, what do our constituents need? And when you look at the exit the exit polls, it's clear, number one is the economy, and healthcare, which is part of the economy, is number two, very strongly.
Very curious, though, that despite those election results, you've got people like Cory Booker and Andrew Cuomo saying that the party is failing. But by the way, Alex, you're not off the hook either, because looking at Republican losses this month and in the New Jersey and Virginia governor's races, a new op-ed argues that Republicans need a new election-winning strategy. An excerpt here. Tactically, the party did the work. Strategically, however, it didn't focus on the right voters. In the first major election since Trump's landslide victory and the GOP's trifecta win, Republicans leaned heavily on last year's winning strategy, coaxing low-propensity base loyalists back to the polls. Meanwhile, Democrats focused on and won the persuadable middle. So when you take a look at all of that, it would seem that the Republican Party needs to adjust focus in much the same way as the Democratic Party does. To talk about affordability, but not just in terms of gas prices and groceries, but also in terms of housing, health care, the other things that people have to deal with every day, which really keep them up at night.
Yeah, I think you're right. When Trump is not on the ballot, Republicans do have a turnout problem. I think that's going to be their biggest hurdle with the midterms elections. Now, I think they're already kind of have an uphill climb. I know it's been like, I think, 20 out of the past 22 midterm elections dating all the way back to 1938. The president's party does tend to lose ground. And the economic numbers are not favorable for Trump. I think he's lost ground at about 15 points with his approval. So, yes, they need to tackle that. I was thinking, the president's been pushing these tariff refund checks. Maybe that's a narrative that he should continue. The other thing that Booker brought up was a change in media tactic, that Democrats tend to run to MSNBC instead of go to TikTok. That was one area where President Trump and Republicans have seemed to make up ground, is going after younger voters and using alternative media. I know some of the senators on Capitol Hill are even utilizing their TikTok accounts, some Republican senators, and I think that's quite wise. I think Republicans have been great at utilizing alternative media going around the mainstream, and Democrats are going to have to look at ways to do that too. I think Booker was spot on talking about using TikTok more than MSNBC. He said, no offense to MSNBC, but I might say that you'll find misinformation on both TikTok and MSNBC. So be careful.
All right. Well, folks, thanks for being with us. Really appreciate your time today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, it's Will Cain. Click here to subscribe to the Fox News channel on YouTube. It's the best way to get our latest interviews and highlights. And click to subscribe to the Will Cain podcast for full episodes right now.